All right, here's our composition settings panel. Again, HD dimensions 1920 by 1080. These are scrubby sliders too. That's one thing I forgot to add. If you want to change the dimensions but want to keep the aspect ratio, you can just make sure that this is locked on. The best tool ever. So you can just make sure that that's locked, and you'll stay in that 16 by 9, which is that widescreen HD screen. And then you can turn these up and down to whatever you need them to. You can also click inside and manually enter whatever you want. I'm going to leave them at 1920 by 1080. Whoa. Well, I hit accept. Now I'm zoomed way in. Just going to reopen that up. My frame rate, 29.97, that's standard. Again, we're only at 5 seconds. The first two numbers are frames, second are seconds, minutes, and then hours. I'm going to leave my background color to black. I'm going to change it in a little bit. And I'm just going to click OK. So here's my screen. Make this bigger. All right, last week we kind of navigated this screen and figured out what all the different panels do. First thing we want to do is we're going to import those two pieces, those two files that I had you download from Blackboard into this project files panel here. Okay, two ways to do that. You can either just double click on this panel and the import dialog box will show up, or you can go to File, Import, and you can do one file, you can do multiple files. I'm just going to double click, and here's my import file. Mine's on the desktop. So I'm just going to import both of these files at the same time. Just click Open. So there they are right here in my Project Files panel. All right, so remember, the timeline is directly attached to whatever is going on here in your Compositions panel. This is also called your stage. All right. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to drag out this background.jpg file onto my stage. And notice what happens in your Layers panel. It's a lot like what happens in Photoshop. Whenever you bring something into Photoshop, it creates a new layer for you. A lot of the same functionality in After Effects. So you can see I've now got this image on my stage and my composition, and it created a new layer for me called background.jpg. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, yeah, sorry, Kaylin, what's up?
Where do you get that image from?
It's on Blackboard. You download it from Blackboard. It doesn't fit? All right, did you change your document settings? It should be 1920. Just go up to composition settings and just make sure it's 1920 by 1080. And it doesn't fit?
I think yours is a bit over the edges too, isn't it?
Yeah, on the top and bottom it's a little bit over.
Oh.
Yeah, that's okay. If you guys have questions, just put your hands up. Yeah.
What's it called?
Background.jpg. It's in the project. What's that folder called? It's in the in-class demos folder called Bouncing Ball. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, you almost have to, okay, we'll put our physics hats on for a little bit, right? We need to think about all the different things that happen to a ball when it's bouncing. Let's first just drag this ball out onto our stage, just to see it. All right, so I've got a problem here. I've got this black background inside the ball. So if you ever bring artwork from Photoshop or any other program into After Effects, it works a lot like InDesign. You can make changes to that artwork and then update the artwork. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open Photoshop really quick. If you guys just want to turn Photoshop on for a minute. And then open up that ball called croppedball.psd. Okay, real good. You can see this this file has two layers. So it's got the ball, and then it's got this black background. I'm just going to hide that background so that I can see that now my background is transparent. And I'll save that file. I'm just going to use my keyboard shortcut, Command S. All right, I'm going to jump back to After Effects, and you can see that updated automatically for me. If it doesn't update automatically for you, you can right-click on this file and just click on Reload Footage, and that should update for you. Okay, we're all good. We're all kind of set up to start animating. Yep.
How do I open both those things?
You just double click on the window. Yep.
Okay, we're just gonna go over how to get rid of the black background again.
Just go in
To-
Photoshop.
In Photoshop?
Yeah, just go into Photoshop and then just hide that bottom layer. That's just a black. It's called layer 1. Just hide it and then resave your. Yeah, that way you're not really changing your working file. You're just changing kind of what's displayed. So
It's like a smart outfit.
yeah, basically. All right, so now we're going to start thinking about how this ball is going to go across the screen. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to lock my background layer just because I don't want to screw around with it. I'm also maybe just going to hide it so that you can see. We're going to be having some paths and things show up, and they're just easier to see if I don't have that gray background. So I'm just going to hide my background layer. All right, so what we're going to do, this ball is going to bounce from outside the screen on the left-hand side to the right-hand side. The great thing about After Effects is that I can put something out here. It's not like previous versions of Photoshop. I know new versions of Photoshop have the artboard, so you can kind of put assets and graphics and things like that around your project and still be able to see them, where in the past you couldn't. We're going to drag this and we're going to bounce this 5 times to go to the other side of the screen. Okay, so let's open up this little, remember that little triangle thing that I was talking about last week? It's like a little carrot. This is where the magic happens. This is where you're going to do all your animations. Right there. Yeah, carrot, not like an orange, like Bugs Bunny type thing. K-A-R-A-T. So just fly that open and you can, yeah.
You fell behind again.
Okay.
What did you save the ball as? No, the background PNG?
No, I just resaved it as a PSD.
A PSD?
Yeah, because if you save it as a PNG, then this file won't update because you've created a new file. So if you save over the old file, your footage will update.
Sorry, for all of my items, if I have a Photoshop file, I just place my Photoshop file in it and it will act as a picture.
Yes.
Okay. Straight.
Okay. So fly open the ball cropped and the transform, and you'll see all these different properties. We are going to, for this first video, before we take a quick break, we're going to talk about this position property really quick and some keyframes, okay? And once we do this, the rest of them should hopefully fall into place quite easily. The first thing that we have to remember is that animations work around keyframes. Keyframes are either, they indicate the start or stop of something or a change in something, okay? So we need to add our first keyframe. And the thing to remember is that you want to make sure you're where you're at in your playhead. So my playhead is at 0 seconds right now. Before you add your first keyframe, or else you're going to just run into a ton of problems. And that happened to me all the time when I first started doing this. I'm just anywhere I want to be inside of my timeline, and I'm adding keyframes, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So just make sure you're where you want to be in your timeline before you start adding keyframes. And the way to do that is I'm at 0 seconds. Okay, I want my animation to start here. So I'm just going to click this little stopwatch right beside the position. the property. Okay, you see what happens here in your timeline. If I can zoom into that. So I've now got this new blank keyframe. You can see it's just this kind of cyan colored diamond shape that's not filled in. That's telling me I've got a keyframe here, but I haven't really started anything. Yep. Okay.
How'd you get those lines on the thingy?
They're just there, like,
Where you're at right now?
Here?
Where, I don't have any.
feel good,
The lines on the thingy. Are you good? Okay. All right. So this is where our ball is going to start. Okay. Now we want it to bounce 5 times before it goes off the screen. Sorry, 4 times before it goes off the screen. What I want to do is I need to move my timeline to the next point where there's a change that's going to happen to the ball. So does anybody have an idea of where that change is going to happen?
1 second.
Yeah, at 1 second. But what happens at 1 second?
it's gonna come onto the screen.
Yeah, so within that 1 second, the ball, again, you have to think about your kind of physics and, you know, the properties that this ball is made of bouncing off concrete or cement or asphalt. That there's going to be an arc, right? And then there's going to be a point of impact. And then there's a change, right? That the ball doesn't keep dropping. Then at that point of impact, the ball changes and we go back up. So we need a keyframe right at that point because, like I said, we're going to change something. So if you go to 1 second in your timeline, just move your current time indicator to 1 second. At this point, you don't need to add a new keyframe again. What you do is you actually just change the object that you want to animate, and After Effects adds a keyframe for you. Okay, a couple ways to do that. You can see here in the position attribute or option. I zoomed way in here. We've got these coordinates, X and Y. Okay, I can just literally scrub these side to side. Whoops, that's my Y coordinate. Don't want to do that. And I'm going to move my ball from side to side. Okay, that's one way to do it. The easier way to do it, the way that I like to do it, is literally just make sure you have your move tool selected and click and drag your ball out to the side. I'm holding shift just to make sure that I've got it perfectly straight. And then notice what happens on your composition panel. You've got this gray line. This is actually a path, and that'll become more apparent in a second, with a whole bunch of different dots on it. Each one of those dots represents one frame within that 1 second of animation. Okay, so you can see here if you scrub your playhead or your timeline or current time indicator across, you can see it jump from dot to dot. That's where that ball is going to be positioned on that frame in particular. Okay, so I mean, the ball's not going to just travel along a straight line. The ball's going to bounce. So how do we create that arc? You guys, remember 2 years ago when you first started using Illustrator and you were like, what the hell are vector graphics and Bezier curves and all that junk? Well, that's what we're going to do today, and I hope you're comfortable with it because we're going to do a lot of it. Under the pen tool up here, there's a tool called Convert Vortex tool. Or you guys know the curved anchor points and corner anchor points and how you convert those two. That's basically what this is. Right now I've got 2 corner anchor points, and I want to create a curve here. So I need this anchor point to be a curve. And I literally just, with my, sorry, it's hard to see, I've got my Convert Vortex tool selected. If I hover over, if you guys can see that, if I hover over the center of this ball, it's actually the anchor point that I'm hovering over, and my cursor changes. If I just click and drag, I can get that Bezier handle to show up, and I can create a curve here.
How big do you want it?
I'm going to leave that up to you. Just put on your thinking cap about what looks realistic, right? We want this. You can go back and change it later, and I'll show you how to do that. This isn't set in stone at this point, but at least it's a start. to get your ball to bounce across the screen. And if you want to change it, typically a ball doesn't keep bouncing at the same height. It's some crazy ball. Every time it bounces, it slows down a bit. The bounce gets a little lower. So I'll let you guys mess around with that when we're done. For the sake of learning quickly, I'm just going to leave it like that. So there's my first bounce, and I've got this keyframe here indicating that I'm going to change something here. It goes into another bounce. So I'm going to move my current time indicator over to 2 seconds, and I'm going to move this ball again. Okay. Again, I don't need to add another keyframe. I'm literally just going to, grab your move tool or your selection tool, and just click and drag that ball over. Now, like I said, you're familiar with paths and Bezier curves and vector graphics and stuff like that. This wants to give me a really nice, smooth, perfectly mathematical curve. I don't want that. I'm going to switch back to my Convert Vortex tool, and I'm just going to drag this Bezier handle back up to the anchor point. And I'm going to grab the one inside the ball and just give it another bounce here. Make that arc. So you can see what happened there is now I've got another keyframe because I've changed it. So if you scrub your playhead, so let's when you move the ball, it's going to create that Bezier handle for you automatically. You're good? Okay. I'm going to redo. All right, and at this point, it's just rinse and repeat. Okay, so I'll let you guys do the last three yourself. I'm going to do them on the screen if you want to watch me do them really quick. But I'll let you guys do them, and then I'll stop the video and we'll start a new one. So I've got my bouncing ball complete, except for this last curve. I don't like the distance between the bounces. That's okay. I'm not that concerned about it. I'm just going to move some of my anchor points. So I'm going to just make sure I have that keyframe selected in my current time indicator, and I'm just going to kind of move these around a little bit. And then scrubbing my playhead, you can see how that ball bounces.